Alright, I'm going to show you a quick video on how to divide decimals. My first problem is easy. 9 and 44 hundredths divided by 4. I said it was simple because my divisor is a whole number, so I can solve this in 3 simple steps. First, I can make an estimate. Well, I know 9 and 44 hundredths, that's close to 10. And I want my estimate to be easy, so I'm going to change my divisor to 5 because that's close. So 10 divided by 5 is 2. So my answer should be in the ballpark of 2. And this estimate is very important because it's going to help us place our decimal. Now I'm going to divide as if the dividend were a whole number. So I'm going to ignore the decimal point. So I'm going to set up 944 divided by 4 using the partial quotients algorithm. And I know 4 can go into 944 at least 200 times, and 200 times 4 is 800. And subtract, and I have 144 left to divide. And I know that 4 can go in 144 at least 30 times to get me 120. And now I have 24 left to divide. And 4 can go into 24 6 times because 6 times 4 is 24. Subtract, and I have nothing left over. So just add up my partial quotients, and I got 236. So 944 divided by 4 is 236. But I got to go back to my original problem. I really had 9 and 44 hundredths divided by 4. So based off of my estimate, I know my answer should be close to 2. So really my answer is 2 and 36 hundredths. I just placed my decimal point based off of my estimate. All right, so that's the easy one. Let's look at another problem. Now I have 4 and 68 hundredths divided by 1 and 3 tenths. So step 1 is to write an equivalent division problem that has a whole number divisor. So we know how to divide decimals if I have a whole digit or a whole number divisor. So I need to get this to be a whole number. Well, what can I do to multiply, or what can I do to get 1 and 3 tenths to a whole number? Well, the decimal point just needs to move over 1 place. So I can do 1 and 3 tenths times 10 to the first power and get 13 here. Now, whatever I do here, I also need to make sure I do over here so I don't change the problem. All right, so this, my dividend, also needs to be multiplied by 10 to the first power, okay? I need to make sure that both sides are equal. So 4 and 6 tenths times 10 to the first power, my decimal point will move over 1 spot. So 4 and 68 hundredths times 10 to the first power would get me 46 and 8 tenths. So now I can just rewrite this equivalent problem and I can figure it out from here. I can do 46 and 8 tenths divided by 13. All right, now this is manageable because I know my strategies for this. My first step would be just simply make an estimate. So 46 is reasonably close to 50. 13 is reasonably close to 10. So 50 divided by 10 is 5. So I know my answer needs to be in the ballpark of 5. So now I'm down to this step. Divide as if the dividend were a whole number to solve your equivalent problem. So I'm going to pretend that this 46 and 8 tenths is a whole number and make it 468. And I'm going to divide that by 13. Set up my partial quotient algorithm. And I know that 13 can go into 468 at least 20 times. And 20 times 13 is 260. Subtract. And now I still have 208 left to divide. And I know 13 can go into 208 at least 10 times. 10 times 13 is 130. Subtract. 10 minus 3 is 7. So now I still have 78 left to divide. And I know 13 times 6 is 78. 78 minus 78 is 0. So now add up my partial products. 20 plus 10 plus 6 is 36. Now I need to go back to my estimate here. 46 and 8/10 divided by 13, my estimate was 5. So the answer to my problem is actually 3 and 6/10. I have to place my decimal based off of my estimate. And because I made this an equivalent problem, 4 and 68 hundredths divided by 1 and 3/10 also equals 3 and 6/10 because I didn't change the value at all. Whatever I did over here, I did over here too. So that's my answer. Let's do one more. So now I have 3 and 9/10 divided by 300ths. And remember, this is really saying, how many times does 300ths go into 3 and 9/10? So it's going to make sense that my quotient might be a little bit larger than my dividend here. So again, my first step is to make an equivalent problem because I want my divisor to be a whole number. So I need to think, how many times does my decimal point need to move? Or I need to multiply 300ths by 10 to the what power to get to a whole number? Well, I can see that it needs to move 2 times. So I can multiply 300ths times 10 to the second power to get 3. And whatever I do over here to my divisor, I need to make sure I do my dividend. So I also need to multiply 3 and 9/10 times 10 to the second power because I don't want to change anything. I want to make an equivalent problem, and that would get me 390. So now I have the problem 390 divided by 3. And my first step then is to make a quick estimate. All right, so maybe I make the estimate of 400, because since 390 is close to that, divided by 4 to get me 100. So I know my answer should be in the ballpark of 100. Second step is just to divide as if the dividend were a whole number, and in this case it is a whole number. So I'm just going to divide 390 divided by 3. Set up my partial quotients algorithm. All right, and I know 3 can go into 390 at least 100 times. So 3 times 100 is 300. 390 minus 300 is 90. And then 90, or 3 can go into 90 30 times. So 30 times 3 is 90. Subtract, we got 0 left over. So add up my partial product or partial quotients, and I get 130. And based off of my decimal point, based off my estimate should be close to 100, so my decimal point would go right here at the very end, 130. So 3 and 9/10 divided by 300ths is 130. So remember, that's really saying 300ths. There's 130 300ths in 3 and 9/10. So it makes sense. All right. So I hope this helps come up with some strategies for dividing decimals. All right.